In this first example, we're going to be working with jQuery's CSS selector set. And this document is just a simple, straightforward HTML5 skeleton containing some inline styles and some inline JavaScript. The markup for this document is a paragraph containing a link and an unordered list of links that have different IDs, some classes, and different attributes applied to them. When rendered, this document looks like this over here on the right. We have our paragraph with the link, our unordered list of links, and you can see we have some green links and a special link with a square bullet. So we start off our JavaScript with the jQuery document ready function as we did in our previous examples. And I'm just going to walk through each of these selectors and point out what element it's going to be grabbing from the document. So our first selector here we are using is the ID selector. And since these are all CSS selectors, the syntax basically emulates what you would use in CSS to grab an element and apply styles to it. So this line, you can see we're creating a variable called special item, and what special item is we're calling the jQuery method and we're passing it a string that is the hash symbol and then special item. This is telling jQuery to go out and grab any element that has an ID of special item. And up here in our CSS you can see that's very similar to what we are doing to select special item above and apply it to square type bullets. So if we look over into the rendered site, you can see I'm using console log again to just give some clean output to see what we're working with. And here I'm outputting a string of what the selector was and then what element we actually grabbed. And over in our console output you can see the special item is pointing at this element, and if we highlight it over it, it's the list item that has special item ID and is rendering with a square bullet, so that looks correct. So our next selector is using jQuery's class selector, and this is very similar to the last example. We're creating a variable called green links, and what we're doing here is calling jQuery and selecting everything that has a class of green. And again, it's the same syntax you would use in CSS to grab every class that's green, just .green. If we look over at our rendered output, we can see that .green returned two items. They're both anchor elements, and if we roll over them, we can see the browser highlight what was selected. Moving on to the next example, we're just using some descendant selectors. This is very similar to CSS again. What we're doing here is creating a variable that's all links in the list, and the selector we're using is, I'll read this in reverse order, is grab all A elements that are child of an list item element that is a child of an unordered list element. And so if we look down into our markup here, what that will do is select all these anchors that are nested in a LI that is nested in a UL. And again, that syntax on this selector string is similar to what you would do in CSS if you wanted to select children or descendants of a different element. And moving back to our output, we can see the unordered list item child anchors. We'll select all these anchors within our list, even the special case class and ID ones. Our next example here is just selecting two different sets of selectors, using a comma to break them up. So here we have a variable multiple, which we're saying we have two groups of selectors we're going to pass. The first group would be an anchor tag within a paragraph, and the second tag would be an anchor within a list item. And again, this syntax is exactly like you would do in CSS if you wanted to apply a style to two different elements. You just break up the element groups with a comma. And our output shows that not only do we have the paragraph anchor tag selected this time, we also have all the anchor tags within the list selected.